Hey everyone, if you are tuning in, you're seeing right now what we call our Tiller-Hewitt Roundtable. Only this day we're talking about relaunch and recover after we're back in business after the coronavirus. So we'll have everybody reintroduce themselves, but this is my senior leadership team, and we're talking about what's going on across the country that they're seeing. Also what they're going through on a personal level. We think that everybody wants to know and confirm that they're not the only ones that feel like they're, maybe visiting One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So, Tommy, let's start with you.
Okay. Hi, guys. Tommy Tiller, live from Illinois. What I'd like to talk about today is what are we going to do with the backlog of referrals and elective procedures that have been a result of cancellations in many of our ORs. So what I think that we're going to see in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whenever it is that life resumes back to normal, is a real paradigm shift wherein past referral patterns will revert back to ground zero and will, one, have an opportunity to grow new referral patterns for those that were loyal to other organizations. And two, we'll have to play the game of protecting our own territory to ensure that our loyal providers don't erode their market share and send business elsewhere.
Hey, Tommy. So I guess on that note, I know you're working with some hospitals on the West Coast, or almost West Coast, if you will. What have you had any conversations with their liaison team? And I'm just curious to know, like, what are they doing during this? And then how are they preparing for that 30, 60, 90-day sort of relaunch? What are you seeing, and what are you guys talking about there?
Yes, we're hard at work to get ready for that relaunch effort. So first, we're building contingencies. So if it happens in 30 days, what do we do? If it happens in 60 days, what do we do? And if it happens in 90 days or greater, what do we do? The first step is to analyze our referral data and make sure that we understand who are our biggest utilizers and who are our biggest referrals into those, or referrers into those utilizers, to make sure they make the top of our list for what will become a surgery blitz, a market blitz, if you will. The second thing that we're doing is we're working with our OR staff and our OR director to find ways that we can increase capacity. We're projecting somewhere between a 25 and 50% increase in pre-COVID surgical volume post-COVID for a like amount of time that we were down. That's how long we're going to be up at a higher capacity. All right. So, with that said, now is a great time to rally the troops and try to determine ways that we can improve access and increase capacity, whether it's extending hours, doing process improvement. Many of our systems are so busy when times are good that we struggle to be able to get everyone in the same room, even virtually, to have strategic conversations and to map out the process. So step one is to figure out how we accommodate the business, whether, again, extending hours, process improvement. Step two is going to be crafting communication to those referrers to make sure that they know we're open for business. I am of the mindset that the first organization in any given market that has their act together when it comes to normal business again is going to get the lion's share of this business.
Yeah.
At least that first rush. So I believe that, your typical referrer is going to try your organization. He's also going to try your competitor. And whoever is able to accommodate that business first on the day that life resumes, that organization will probably get the bulk of that backlog business. So having the ability to accommodate that business on day one and be part of a team that's proactively planning for it is going to be critical to our success after this is over.
So Tommy, on that note, I know in the Dayton market, some of the adult liaisons are being used to keep in contact with, some of that referring business. So even people who are scheduled for surgeries, I think some of the doctors are being used to reach out to those families and say, hey, we're sorry about what's happening. We're, in the meantime, do this, stay on your regimen, or don't forget that you're not supposed to be eating if you're going in for some type of bariatric surgery or whatever. But I know they're utilizing their doctors who may not be so busy to reach out to patients and or providers. Are you seeing any of that?
Yes, we are seeing that. So, again, to your point, it's important to stay top of mind through this crisis. So as we're out in practices to improve and enhance communication with our sales hats off, now is the time for practices to communicate with them, build relationships, not promote your organization. But I think that's a great idea to creatively use our physicians.
Hey, and I think that's a good point. I think for liaisons that have had trouble, if you will, getting into offices or getting in front of providers. I mean, granted, we're not going face to face with them, but phone calls, emails, they seem to have more time. And if we're really showing value through this crisis to people that we didn't even maybe have a chance to talk to before, there's an opportunity, to your point, Tommy, to build that relationship, so that when we come out of it, you can put your sales hat back on and have some real good conversations with these people that you've built better relationships with during the crisis.
For some of those specialists that are not terribly busy right now, you might find that they are just as anxious as we all are about what the world will look like after this crisis. You know, they have volume and productivity targets to hit as well, especially those that are in independent practice. So you might find that they are more willing than ever to have some strategic conversations with you about what their practices look like and what you can do to help. And as we build our post-COVID OR or our surgery blitz, I also firmly believe that we're going to find physicians that are much more flexible in what they're willing to do to grow their practices than ever before. So where for providers who have had no interest in operating on a Saturday or a Sunday or 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, we may find that because they need to get their own productivity up, they're much more willing to work with us.
For sure.
Hey, Tommy, I think this sounds absolutely amazing, but it is a lot of talk. So what are you doing? Well, no, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful by any means, but when I first started working with Tammy, her mantra was plan your work and then work your plan. So why don't we go ahead and get this mapped out and then go ahead and start working it? So why can't we start an OR schedule now, even though we don't have an actual start date? But why aren't we getting all of that already lined up for our docs for them?
Pick me.
I
want to answer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll take the mic. So 2 things. When we do lean teams in organizations, when we first go in and we ask the CEO, what do you want to grow? And they always say surgery. They say the high dollar modality imaging. And we do a growth team. So Andrea, you're painfully aware because we've done so many together. But the first thing we say on the first day of our growth or our lean teams is, what if tomorrow we doubled our business?
Yep.
And that's how we want to be thinking. So just to give Tommy some props, that was actually Tommy's saying that I stole, plan the work and work the plan.
Oh, no
I know.
way.
I didn't give.
Out of all these years, you've never given him the credit?
No. Well, I could never. I say it so much. I guess I could say, well, Tommy Tiller says. But no, I stole it. So anyway, so you're right. And that is so Andrea, for all of you guys who don't know Andrea, she is just a no nonsense, let's get it done. And so you're right. So what are we going to do? Because, and I'll be quiet, because we think as liaisons and other marketing directors that are on the phone and vice presidents of outreach teams, we think, oh, the surgery director has this covered, right? They're on this. But they are not. And here's why, to their defense. They have most of their staff furloughed. They're worrying about their staff not being able to make their car payment, house payment, buy food. And so, for some of them, that is not at all. I mean, they want to, but they have like the fire going today. So how can we as a liaison team, Tommy, and I think that's what you're saying, all together, come up with a strategic outreach plan? And part of that is working internally now. So when the floodgates open, you're like, bam. And what kind of marketing collateral can we create now and start taking out that whatever the date is, June 1st, May 1st, whatever, we are now going to have, 12-hour-a-day shifts in the OR, open on weekends, whatever. So, okay, the end for me.
So I think, to your point, Andrea, to start planning the work is to determine how we can accommodate the business. And we can call it a growth team, a process improvement team, a capacity enhancement team, whatever it is, but it all starts with ensuring that we can accommodate the business, because the business will be there. You can bet on the fact that there will be enough business to go around. It's all going to be about capacity management to be able to accommodate all of that business that we can. So that's step one, rally the troops, have a process improvement event, map out the process as it stands now, and schedule and plan a contingency for what if it's a 25% increase, what if it's a 50%. And I would encourage you not to forget about surgery scheduling, not to forget about your pre-auth team, not to forget about your clinic scheduler. So every place in your organization where you may have had bottlenecks already, you will have choke points after this if we don't address each one of those steps. So if we're able to accomplish that and we are able to figure out a way to accommodate, say, 20, 30% more business than we had in the past, what we need to work with marketing to do is create basically a referral tool. We can call it a marketing collateral, a referral tool, a process document that instructs them how to go about scheduling their cases, what it will look like, what our extended hours are, what we're doing to improve capacity and access to make life easier for them. And then the next phase, and it can all these things can happen simultaneously, is review all that referral data, both internal and external. Who were your biggest utilizers before? Who were the biggest referral sources into those lists that were big OR block utilizers? And it build your target list, your blitz list. And as soon as you all get the go ahead to go back out in the field, which hopefully, and I'm lobbying for this in all of my organizations, is just before we truly go live, so that we have an opportunity to be a communication mechanism to let people know what is about to happen rather than what's already happened. As we build that target list, we'll know exactly where we're going to deploy our resources on day one, on week one, on month one, to make sure that we capitalize on that big backlog of referrals. For those of you that don't have concierge programs or pre-authorization programs within your organization, now is a terrific time to launch those. And what I mean there is to have someone internally that works for your organization that takes care of your insurance pre-authorizations for a referring practice. Talk about a way to be a value add when the referral coordinator at your independent practice has 500 referrals sitting on his or her desk, and you're able to take all of those and completely take them off their desk.
I mean, that's a great point, Tommy. And I think so a lot of places have people kind of sitting a little bit idle right now. And one of those is certainly a central scheduling in the schedulers, obviously. And it's a balance, right? It's a balance between managing the current crisis and how we're all going to do that. And then, but keeping our eye on the ball for what's coming after the crisis is over, right? And it's just it's a really hard balance. And that's what I'm feeling and hearing from everybody. And so the liaison's role can very much be, checking in with different departments in the organization, because you all went through your training. So check back with your central schedulers, check back with your clinic managers that you haven't talked to, just check in, see how they're doing, maybe re-engage with the internal organization while you have some time. And the other thing I've heard that people are doing with this quote unquote downtime, if you will, is just, maybe you talked about knowing who you're going to blitz, Tommy. So making sure that your databases are up to date, your CMRs are, have the most current data. It's a good time to maybe do a cleanup as you get ready to go back out and blitz. So these are just some of the other things I think to tag onto what you're saying, Tommy, that may be something liaisons can do.
I think that liaisons need to have a new title. There needs to be a new C-suite person. It's called the CRO, the Chief Recovery Officer. So if you start wearing that hat of really thinking, people are taking care of what's going on now, but you need, as Tommy said, stay involved, stay in touch so people know you're a valuable resource to the organization, but always with your eye on planning, people getting together to plan for the recovery afterwards. Big time.
Right.
So I have a question, Andrea.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just even thinking that they should go ahead and set out their schedules and go ahead and get these Zoom meetings started with their department heads and map out their plan with their, so let's say, for instance, the CEO or the CFO. Okay, I have a scheduled meeting for you and me on this such and such dates. Let's be that Chief Recovery Officer. The other one is this is kind of funny because a lot of people are having sex because that's really the only thing they can do at home. So
and there's
I'm telling you, OB better be ready. In 9-10 months from now, we're going to have an explosion. That's why we're going to keep all the other, abuse down in the home and all the arguing is because we're going to all have sex. But just think about that. If that's the case, if your area does not have enough OBs, if we don't have enough room, get ready. It's going to happen. It will happen.
True point.
There's a
True,
lot of
true, true.
stats out there that tells you how many babies every area is going to have.
I love real
Okay.
talk. We need another show, Real Talk with Andrea.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. You know, it's something about being a wellness coach. You talk about every body function, you talk about every human desire. And she just talks about it like I say, isn't it beautiful outside today? She says, everyone's going to be having sex. Okay. So Andrea, while we're on you, and I want to hear, Kim, about the Children's Hospital. That's an interesting deal. Just the trickle down effect that we have. We think, oh, kids aren't getting sick, so children's hospitals are fine. So I want to talk about that. But Andrea, I want to talk about what you said you were going to talk about of people trying to juggle this new reality of
Yeah. Well, and you know what, here's the other thing is because not everybody's actually in an office right now. Our offices, our kitchen says, welcome to Andrea's kitchen right now, because we can't actually be in the quote field. So with that though, we have all these struggles with our quote time management, and we might be sharing the actual space with someone else in the house, such as our kids, our significant others. So we have to make sure that we have a plan, and then we work our plan. So if my kids are in school normally from 8 to 3, that means that they're going to be in school from 8 to 3 in my home. If my husband normally works from 7 to 7, he's probably still going to want to work from 7 to 7 because he still has to keep his business up. So you have to have a plan. And just remember this, the kids are the most important. That's number one. So making sure that they are set up for success, no matter if, you know, they say, okay, congratulations, you've graduated today, there's no more school. Well, that's just not really realistic. We have to keep that learning going on. So again, have a schedule. That's number one. So you might actually have to work earlier in the day or later at night and spend your time that where you have these set new strategic planning meetings through Zoom with your executive field or executive directors, that you actually then have that time set up for somebody else to be able to watch the kids. Now, if you don't have anybody in your home, but you still have to stick to a schedule. I mean, look how beautiful everybody is today. They got up and they got dressed. They're not in their daytime pajamas. They're actually in their clothes.
Down here we are.
Yeah, it was so funny. Tammy sent out something earlier in the week about, oh, if it's 9 o'clock, I have to take off my daytime pajamas and put on my nighttime pajamas. So no, you got to get up and stick to your routine, because if you don't, then when it is time to really get out there in the field, you're not going to be ready. Tammy also mentioned about the COVID-19, earlier today about, what the average weight gain during this time is going to probably be 19 pounds. Well, you can stop that today. You don't have to have that happen. By making sure that you're eating balanced food, that you're sticking to your actual true diet, and then of course getting your rest. If you're not getting enough rest, you guys, you're not going to be productive. So you've got to have a plan. Everybody needs to be involved in the plan. Everybody has to take their own onus of that actual plan. Stick to it. Go to work just like you normally would. It's just going to be maybe at the kitchen table.
So Andrea, I have to share. Oh, go ahead, Tammy.
No, I was just going to say, tell her about your plan before you jump into Children's Hospital.
I have to share a funny story personally, because I have a junior in college and a junior in high school at my house. And of course, my husband, he's all working from home. And when our internet started to get a little wonky, I realized that I was on a call, Bob was on a call, my son Braden was doing his, e-learning for high school, and my daughter was doing her e-learning for college. So we're all sucking up that internet. So I don't know. That's going to be problems. But to your point, Andrea, I told both of my kids, and I said, here's a piece of paper. I want you to write down what your schedule is going to be. You can decide how you want to schedule your time, but I want a schedule. And so in my son's case, he said he wanted to go to bed at midnight, get up at 9. He's going to, I think, do the hot tub and his workouts, and then he was going to do his studying. So I'm allowing them, I mean, they're almost adult children, but I'm trying to make sure they keep a schedule, but giving them the flexibility to your point, Andrea, be part of the discussion, not just dictating to me, because no one's used to having this much time together, right? Frankly.
Yeah. It's so cute. My neighbor girls are young, so they made in their quote art class, which is at the kitchen table with mom and dad, do not disturb doorknobs, because it was so funny, because he actually had to take a call And the kids were being too loud. And so they had to come up with a way that if the do not disturb little thing is on the door, that you do not disturb, you can keep the noise down. So, but again, everybody did it together. So it's super important.
Yeah, I've been on so many calls now where you just all have to give each other a break, right? You have to realize that the kid might come in, that the dog might bark, you know, and we all just have to give each other a break. We're all trying to deal with the same thing, and it's okay. You know, you can't be professional all the time when you're at home. It just isn't going to happen. So it's okay. It's okay. Mommy, you have little kids. I'm curious, or littler, I should say, younger. You know, what's it like for you in your household?
Well, it's Grand Central Station most days, so my wife is home right now. I think she might actually be waiting outside my office door as we speak. I've got a dog running around rampant, and I've got a senior in high school who thankfully is on to subject matter that's well beyond my scope of expertise, like calculus, so she's managing her own schedule. And I have a 10-year-old in 5th grade that's keeping me busy as well. So her teacher has been sending homeschool curriculum home every day, so that's been keeping her busy. And my 17-year-old, my senior, I think, is effectively graduated, so they're not grading anything from here till the end. So she's just prepping.
Is she depressed about, you know, what I'm
point.
seeing a lot of too, not having her prom and her maybe not having her graduation? Like, that's a struggle too. These seniors, it's taken away from them.
Yeah, she's a little upset about it. She likes not having to go to school, so that part's not bothering her too much. She's upset that she's going to miss the last week of school. I guess that's the fun week for senior. And she's upset about prom. Up until this past week, she was very upset that we were keeping her home and not letting her go hang out with friends.
Yeah, that's hard. And
I think now there is enough attention shined on the pandemic that it's serious for everyone. So
I did see where they're doing virtual proms where everybody's still getting all dressed up and they're actually going to, let's say, for instance, like a Zoom, and they're actually going to be doing some kind of a fun little virtual prom where there'll be music and stuff like that. Some of the schools are hosting, and in the schools that are hosting it, it's by department. So let's say, for instance, your band. So a lot of the band kids are all getting together and doing it. If you're a football team, they're actually kind of doing it. So they're trying to come up with some fun ways that the seniors are not going to lose. It's just going to be a different memory. And that's what you have to tell them. You know, yes, it's really, really stressful and you can get really sad about this, but it's just going to be a different memory. So,
Andrea, what would you tell the moms that are struggling with the workload and the home load right now? I mean, I just think there's so much on everybody to be perfect. I mean, what would you tell them to do?
Well, it actually would depend on what they're actually asking me, because I think every situation is a little bit different. But number one, and I think this is so important to help even prevent you from getting, you know, the virus itself, is that you got to exercise. You have to exercise, and you have to do cardiovascular exercise. To actually open up your VO2, so that way it'll prevent you to. Well, actually, your recovery would be much, much better. It might even be a preventative as well. But it also really helps with your stress, you guys. It actually increases your happy endorphins. So if I'm really, really stressed out, instead of going to the refrigerator or baking another dozen of cookies, go out and get some aerobic activity. We can still go outside. And if not, turn on some music with the kids and get in the living room and just start dancing. But you've got to get exercise in. That's number one. Number two is you have to sleep. You have to get enough rest, because that's the whole recovery part of it. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then it's not going to work. So again, they would have to actually be really specific exactly what they're stressed out about. Is it because, you know, are you actually giving enough attention to your kids with their schoolwork? You know, if that's the case, you have online tutoring. You can bring in somebody. Actually, people are actually wanting to make money by being that virtual teacher. So they can actually use that component as well. There's a great time to teach your kids how to clean their house. So if your house is a mess, teach them how to clean their own house. Teach them how to do laundry. You know, everything can be a math problem, a science problem, or an art, not a problem, but actually a class and an art class. So you can make all of this stuff into something fun.
I did tell my husband now's a good time to teach our son, the 17-year-old, how to grill. you know, because
Yeah.
you never have time to do that. So yeah, that's a great point, Andrea. I love it.
Kim,
Okay, well, let's
telehealth?
talk about sorry, Tommy.
Kim, what's going on in your world with expanding of telehealth?
Yeah, so I don't think you can talk about this pandemic and staying at home and doing only essential things, which I'm not sure what that is. I think we all struggle on what is actually essential, but without talking about telehealth, because I've found it interesting in talking to people that aren't in the healthcare world that they're just assuming right now that everybody's busy, that they're busy. And what they don't understand is that we've cut the elective surgeries. People are staying at home. So no, they're not busy. And so they're down, like I mentioned before, 50% sometimes in their visits are communities of physicians. And so all of a sudden, when people before, I heard specialists and I've heard, you know, community providers say, oh, telehealth is not good medicine. You know, they didn't want to do it. Some of them are dabbling in it, but guess what? They are forced to do it now if they want to stay viable. So, and couple that with what we're learning and getting from our insurance companies, a lot of them are relaxing copays. They're not charging the copays. They're relaxing the restrictions on how telehealth is delivered. It could be via phone, video. We can use what we're doing right now at this point during this crisis. We can FaceTime. A doctor can FaceTime a patient in their home and do a visit and bill the same way. Again, it varies from state to state, but that's the one thing if I would recommend is figure out what your telehealth parameters are, pull those resources together for your providers. Now, granted, your hospital systems are doing that a lot, but what about your independents? I mean, don't forget your independent providers out there and giving them some resources, because I think that this is going to stay with us when this is over, this idea of telehealth. So then what does that mean for us as liaisons as well when we're back out visiting with our providers? So again, it's just balancing what's happening now with what is going to happen. And from everything I've heard, you know, while we can do the phone call now and bill for it, that's not going to be the case afterwards. So, you know, work with your hospital systems to get to that telehealth platform video, because that probably will stay and be a viable option for even specialists. And I guess the only other thing I would say is a lot of what I'm seeing is they're using telehealth for everything, right? I think before you said, well, I might use it for my ADHD visit or a follow-up. I think a lot of our specialists and hospitals would use them for follow-up, surgery follow-up, just to check in. Now they're really having to be creative on using them for lots of things. So maybe it's a dermatology and you could actually zoom in and see, you know, pretty well what's on the person's arm and maybe make a determination. So they're using them for sick visits. They'll have mom or dad, in the case of a kid, take their temperature, weigh them. You know, you can do all this stuff now. So they're getting very creative about how they're using telehealth, even if they did use it before. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And I think as liaisons, we need to be super on top of what's happening and super thinking ahead about what will look like after this is over.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, we've all talked about what really association should liaisons be a member of. And we all know that there's AAPL, American Association of Physician Liaisons, which is an awesome organization. I firmly believe that all liaisons, one or at least one person on the team, should be a member of MGMA, Medical Group Management Association. I get so much great news from there. And what came across this morning that I haven't had time to read before our meeting today was something about their relaxing some APP rules and regulations. So it's like hot off the press as it relates to the physician side of our business from MGMA, not AMA or ACHE or even AAPL. It's at MGMA, and it is awesome to be on top of those chains of questions and answers and experts to be able to be a resource to our providers.
Well, and Tammy, I'll say the other way we could be a resource that I am seeing is, you know, the doctors can tend to be on top of that stuff, but what they're not on is what are the other resources? So as their patient families lose their jobs, you know, what are the resources we can give them to share with their patient families? What are the resources we give them related to what if they need to take a small business loan out because they're not surviving during this? So just again, that's what I talked about earlier. The more you can help them during this crisis, the more they're going to trust you. And, you know, you can get back to your sales with them and really see some good results, because there's lots we can do. I think there is a lot we can do during this to be supportive to our providers, for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Tammy, has the hospitals actually started working on their marketing strategy as well? And have we started working on different tools and resources for the liaisons?
Well, you know, different organizations are at different places. Yesterday, we talked to an organization and they are trying to tool up. They're starting to talk about it, but, you know, it's also the fire of the day. So having resources, as Kim kind of said, having a foot in both camps. We're in the here and the now and the future. And the one thing that, so I don't know how far along they are, but honestly, a lot of people aren't that far along. They keep thinking this is going to be so short that they're not going to have to create all this new stuff. And I think they're realizing now it's a different story. But with that said, one tip we did hear from the marketing director was they're sending all patients a card that were canceled, like canceled their procedure or their surgery, sending them a personal card saying, hey, we're sorry that, you know, your procedure had to be canceled. Look forward to getting you rescheduled. And I thought that was genius. And as we talked further was, you know, about sending doctor cards too, and doing some kind of similar touch with the physicians as well. So that was a long-winded answer to say I don't think they're there yet, because I don't think they really know exactly what is needed.
I agree. And the other thing I would say as liaisons that we could do in the moment where we maybe have tried this before is, especially in a case like one of our clients, Mercy Kansas City, out in Kansas City, they're a children's hospital that doesn't have any children's hospitals near them. And so they needed to do WebExes and telehealth already. And the liaisons, you know, utilize WebExes to begin with. But I think now more than ever, you know, use that technology to stay in touch with your providers that you would normally go visit, you know, 2.5, 3 hours away. Use those WebExes. And here's the key. Our specialists in the hospitals are not as busy, right? So now's the time maybe to do maybe even a CME presentation that you can give to all of your providers, because they also have a little bit of time to maybe, you know, the things that we're always trying to do with WebEx, with our specialists and our family practices in the community, is now's the time to do it, because everybody has honestly a little bit more time until this pandemic hits. But even then, it's the ICU, it's the ER that's going to be swamped, not our specialists and not our community providers.
But back to when the switch does get flipped, everybody needs to remember about how not anxious, but kind of anxious all of our surgeons are going to be to get moving. So to Tommy's point earlier, they're going to be going to work for wherever they can get into. So that, to me, if we have to talk about a pecking order and trying to get our finances back in line, we don't make money in the ER, we make it in the OR. So how can we really be, if we had to pick one thing, so I guess in closing today, one thing that we need to do, that would be my vote. So let's go around the room to be conscious and start working with your OR director on how you guys are going to do the recovery efforts. So that would be my vote. Tommy?
That would be my vote as well.
Kimmy?
Telehealth. I think telehealth, if they haven't instituted, is going to be a thing of the future. You can bill in a lot of cases at the same rate as an in-person visit. You know, if you don't mind, another reason for telehealth, especially in the children's community, is kids are so afraid to go see a doctor or go into a hospital, but they think it's really cool. They're talking to their pediatrician or someone on video because that's what they're used to, right? So I think that is the piece I would keep my eye on, and how we're going to use that once we're over this.
Awesome. Andrea?
Well, I think that, you know, someone said this, and I don't know exactly who said it, but plan your work and work your plan. So get out there and make that plan out and get busy, as the great Tommy Tiller would say. But the other one is, don't forget, is run, rest, recover. So get out there and start running your business, because you can do it right here from your own kitchen, but also get out there and go for a run to build your VO2. Make sure you rest appropriately, so that way you can recover and you can do it all over again the next day. So that's mine.
And we will recover.
So, hey,
we will.
Yes, we will. And, you know, as I said earlier on the Friday from the Field, I firmly believe that what is going to come out of this is there are going to be a lot of promotions. There are going to be a lot of people who've risen to the occasion now who are going to rise to a higher level very soon within your organization. Let that be you. So thank you for joining our Tiller-Hewitt Relaunch and Recovery Roundtable. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post it on or give us a call in the office anytime. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, bye-bye, guys.